Here we go. Now, what happened just there, I'm going to check for 1 second. I don't love technology, folks, as you know. Didn't say to the cloud, so I just want to make sure we're going to be okay. Looks like we're good. So we're going to there's no such thing as finish. We're going to spend another morning on wise, wholehearted, loving, peaceable. What other verbs or adverbs could you put in? Action. And we talked last week about the reality that though right action at its base is sila, S-I-L-A, sila, or a series of codes or ethics. And we referenced things like the Ten Commandments. But I asked us to pause and be a little bit cautious because the way these ethics are written is not what to do, but certainly what not to do, not kill, but affirm and support life, right? These two very large, right? Not to take that which is not needed or useful or beneficial or equitable, right? Wow. And what that means, not to use intoxicants, not to cause harm, to particularly sexual harm or lust to those deserving of protection. These are basic values. You might even say, to some extent, universal taboos generally. And one of the things I love about the precepts, they're called the 5 lay persons precepts, these base rules, is that they really don't tell you how. They really don't separate you from the conditions and the circumstance of your present moment. In fact, what is most understood in these traditions is that with that right mind, with the mind of right view, with the mind of right intention, with the then beginning manifestations and actions of right speech, you best, you best, you better than any God, than any Buddha, than any Allah, than any Yahweh, than any Muhammad, you best will know what is skillful, that is of greatest benefit, and what is of least harm and contributing to the good. I love that knowing that you, in right mind, in whole heart, will know best, and that we can have confidence, trust, we can develop faith in these actions. I'm confronting something, I'll talk a little about it just as an example. The what is never important, but I'm confronting something that I know is going to cause a certain amount of disruption, a certain amount of distress, a certain amount of feelings. And those feelings will certainly be of distress, maybe even perceived threat. And I am really using this Noble Eightfold Path as my compass. I'm really using it. Is it wholehearted? Is it with the intent to cause harm or to contribute towards the good? Is it something that is timely? Is it right? I'm really reflecting deeply on all of these considerations. And what I have to say is that it has offered me an absolutely unbridled protection and safety. I am not fearful. I am not fearful of the outcome. I am trusting completely in the path, in the path. And in that right mindedness, in that wholeheartedness. And so I am letting go of all the other, like, what about and what if nots and maybe, because of course I cannot know that. I cannot know. I'm not a prophet. I can't read the future. I going back will not be of service other than the wisdom that I can glean from that. And we're going to talk about that today. Skillful remorse, wholehearted remorse, reflecting back and then recognizing that in certain moments we were blind. In certain moments we let our fear guide us. In certain moments we were too passive or too aggressive. We were too, right, to be in right-minded wholeheartedness. And I've even used that very reflection back where, how did I contribute to the problem? And how might I now, in that reflection called Hiri, 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 with that remorse, that recognizing that unskillfulness, recognizing I did not do my best, recognizing my own numbness or passivity or fear, with that recognition, and then within the reflection, which we're going to do today, how then now do I live? How then now, with that Hiri, that wisdom, right from the unskillful action, do I live today? And that's called Ottava, the future beneficial consequence, Ottava, of right, coming right from the wrong thing, the thing I shouldn't have said, the thing I shouldn't have done, the thing I'd have done better if I just shut up, the thing I'd have done better if I would have spoken up or taken a stand. Hiri. And the Buddha himself said that wholesome remorse, wholesome, not to see oneself as bad, but to recognize the action itself as arising from essential conditions, including karma, that at the moment you could not see, know, and act from clearly, and then compassionately. Do we get this idea? We all have it. We're going to do this in the practice now, just that reflection. But I wanted to read this from Jeff Foster first. And as I'm reading, you can prepare to sit. If we are honest, we have all been there, and we all may go there again, and soon. There is no shame in feeling broken, a mess, full of rage, far from our vision of love. Let's lift the taboo. No feeling is wrong, and as Rumi says, no feeling is final either. Let's lift the taboo on our intimate, internal life. Violence belongs primarily in imagination, in myth and story and fantasy. There it can live its life to completion and catharsis. We have always loved stories of great battles. We love it when goodness prevails. We can rest as the storm rages, and from a place of presence, we can make a new choice. We are not bound anymore, blinded by our past, doomed to repeat unhealthy behaviors, puppets to the ones who didn't know any better. We can make a new choice. Today, harness the spiritual power of our anger, for it only wants to be heard. Use it to fight for good, to speak truth fearlessly, to speak up about cases and causes we believe in, to speak out against abuse and bullying of any kind, to protest not to hurt or to damage or to bully or to kill, but to protect and uplift and educate and speak up for our loved ones. I took heart in a pre recorded video shown at the Grammy Awards Sunday with President Zelensky urging Americans from a bunker in Kiev to support us in any way you can. Any, but not silence, but not nothing. And we've all got, don't we all, Hiri, levels of wholehearted remorse about the times we have also not acted right to protect, to defend that which is most towards the good. I love, this came right out of Sabbath Moments. This is a quote that we all know, so I won't read it. It's by Mr. Rogers, right? Whose mother told him as a child, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And that we remember this not only as those who are looking for support, but also those who are, in fact, the helpers. That we ourselves, in fact, are those helpers. And then sitting upright, here is the prayer from St. Francis. And then we'll sit. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. And of course, these words reflect the values of the Christian tradition, many of which, isn't it true, if not most, if not all, of which is also true towards the good. So let's prepare to sit. May we for a moment reflect on our aspirations and intentions for this practice this morning, that we might realize that goodness that is our true nature, that may we cause least harm, may we contribute something to the good, and may we do so not only for ourselves, not only for our loved ones, not only for those we like, but for all beings everywhere, without exception, omitting none. Awakening us. And freeing us all. Establishing an upright, supported, peaceful posture. Let that inner goodness, that inner nobility and dignity shine right through. And once we make contact with that awakened heart, awakened mind, we sit like a Buddha, however that is. And then we begin very gently, with a lot of friendliness, to turn the attention towards the whole of the body sitting here. And doing a very gentle sweep of the body, bringing the attention along with the breath all the way from the bottoms of the feet up and over and through the body and out the top of the head. And then back down. Do this just a few times, getting a sense of the body in oneness, in wholeness, interconnected, interbeing. And then let the attention come to rest in the natural flow of the out breath. You can feel a kind of weightedness in the area of the heart, the chest, sometimes the belly. And with the out breath, we're just gently, you could imagine a gentle massage in all those areas of tightness, in all those places of contraction, of holding. We're seeing if we can't simply begin to dissolve all that constructed distress. Giving ourselves as completely as we can to each out breath. Softening the face, releasing the shoulders, relaxing the belly. That nobility, that dignity comes from within, and it is who you already are. You have been born to this precious human life, accorded to few, to love and be loved. This is your birthright. And breathe it into being. We set the body and then we set the mind. Right action is the result of right mindedness and wholeheartedness. Completely joined. And we gather those two together with each breath. It doesn't matter if it's a smooth or a jagged breath, if it's long or short, tight or loose. It is in the placement of attention with the qualities of kindness, non-judgment, patience, acceptance, loving presence. And then with each in breath, we're going to begin to breathe right into the heart space and make lots of room. Breathe open the heart. It's already there, already available. We may have some dust, some old armor, old habits hanging out. This is not a problem at all. We can breathe in, make contact, and love it all. The tight spot is the tender one. Breathe into the heart space on the in breath, and on the out breath, continue to dissolve the armor, the barriers. Drop the weapons, put down the criticisms, the unkindness. There is no benefit to causing harm to yourself. Breathe into the heart space. Make room, invite in warmth, friendliness, all that radiant goodness that's there. Make contact. And on that out breath, we simply sit in the radiance. Let it radiate out, dissolving all the obstacles. We're just one big, radiant, good, sweet, tender heart. Let's breathe that in and out for a few moments. whatever you make contact with in the physicality of the heart, in the emotions of the heart, greet it with kindness and invite it in. Where there is anger, invite peace. Where there is fear, invite hope. Where there is sorrow, invite ease. We're culling the fertile soil of this good heart, this one right here in you. Remember, we're now not just keeping it in the heart space, we have expanded the heart space to include all objects, all events, all peoples, all actions. And then we let it radiate that goodness, let it touch every cell and pore, let it clear the mind, open the heart, radiate the body in goodness. Then we're going to let the body fall away, fall back into that expansive, open, vast heart, so that we are simply a living, breathing, loving presence. remembering that this is who you really are. And that any other thought is merely an illusion, a fear trap, a moment of contraction. And once recognized, we are once again embodied, loving presence. On the in breath and the out breath. Stabilizing the mind in that goodness. And then I'd like you to reflect on a moment of unskillfulness, a moment of too aggressive, too passive, a moment where you now recognize that your greatest heart's intentions were not lived or realized. It might be a moment, it might be a series of moments. Just let it come however it comes. And then place yourself into that vignette. And see if you can recollect the pain, the fear, the contractedness, the aggression, and the perceived threat. You may feel nauseous or tight throated. There may be blurry or difficulty focusing. This is all a function of that unskillful action and its residue. And just let it be. It may have been a moment where we didn't say the whole truth, where we cowered in the face of truth. We didn't live it, we didn't hold it, we didn't stand with it. We didn't realize it. And I'd like you to look at yourself from these most loving, most kind, most tender, most open heart and eyes. Invite yourself into the warmth, into the safety, into the care, the love, and the compassion of this boundless heart. And let yourself take refuge there. Know that you are wholly protected, that you are safe from all harm, all criticism, all judgment. See if you can reflect on that situation and the qualities of heart mind that you had during that situation, and see if you can see what contributed to the unskillfulness. Was it fear, pain, greed? Were you caught in aggression? Was it an addictive dynamic where you were willing to do whatever to stay within the comfort of an old familiar habit? See if you can see yourself not only as that person committing that unskillfulness, but as the fearful, lost, wounded one within. See if you can allow yourself to feel for that pained one, that lost one, the wounded one. Inviting kindness, compassion, genuine care. And then allow yourself to actually feel uh, that wholesome regret for that circumstance, for that harm caused, for the confusion, whatever was its result. And see if you can use that very challenge, that difficulty, that pain to cultivate now wisdom. Something that you learned directly from that unskillful word, reaction, or thought. See how it was, in fact, a benefit. As it cultivated that wisdom and this new compassion. Continue to breathe into the heart, make room. Continue to invite yourself in. Cultivating that wholesome regret. This was not what I wanted to have happen. I was not capable of seeing clearly, of being sufficiently open hearted, of acting skillfully at that time. My history, my habits, my fear and My addictive process played its part, and I see it now clearly. And rather than turn against myself, I invite myself in, as well as that wisdom, along with that compassion. And I breathe it here into being, now more skillful, now more loving, now more kind, more compassionate. And we rest in that integration, now prepared to act most skillfully, most lovingly. And you can play that circumstance, those conditions out again, and see what you might offer now from this heart of wisdom, this heart of compassion, this boundless heart mind that makes room for growth, for healing, for learning, and for mistakes, for failures, for confusion, for not knowing. And as you see yourself in that more skillful frame, wiser, kinder, I'd like you to make a commitment. In the future, from that wholesome remorse and regret, from that wisdom and compassion, how now will you live? How are you changed? How are you healed? How have you grown from that very error, from that very unskillfulness? And picture yourself acting, thinking, and speaking from that wisdom, from that love, from that deep compassion. And as you offer it to yourself and breathe it fully in, so will you too be able to breathe it out. And offer it to those others, those perceived others who, just like me, were afraid or angry, impatient or unkind too. Breathe in the healing and send it out. Breathe in the love and breathe it out. And so as you are transformed, so too will you transform others by this very wisdom. this very kindness, this very love. Taking a few moments to breathe into the boundless heart and send it to those in need. The moments when we have been fearful, may we now be brave. In moments when we have been weakened, may we now be strong. In moments where we have been unkind, may we now be skillful, loving, and offer friendship. We made this practice this morning in this Sangha, in this community of friends, extend beyond to include the community of all beings. May we all be happy. May we all be well. May we all have peace. And may we all dwell within this vast open heart of wisdom and compassion. Free of greed, hatred, delusion. And may this practice contribute that this be so this very day and right now. So be it. Taking a moment, just checking into the body, seeing how you are. I just want to talk for a minute about the practice and see if anyone was able to make contact with these fragments, with these, I don't know, what could you call them? Some kind of false image, really, of who we think we are and how we hang on. And not only hang on, but propagate them. You know, we put flesh and bone and hair and fangs on them, don't we? And then we call it me. The mistake is we call it me instead of calling it fear, instead of calling it greed, instead of calling it by its true name, says Thich Nhat Hanh. And in so doing, coming to then be able to act and think most skillfully, most kindly, most compassionately for ourselves. And then all those others, just like us, who screw it up just like that, right? That out of this clear seeing, there is Hiri, this wholesome remorse, because the harm was not intended. The confusion was not helpful. The reactivity causing more pain. Right? It's our truth. Yes, the warrior rising up in us. There it is. Right? There it is. Both in the best way, the warrior of peace, right? The warrior of possibility, as well as right, the monster, the one who is pained, the one who is lost, right, the one who is ignorant, the one who is in confusion, who cannot see clearly. Yeah, it's really quite weak, isn't it? It's quite failed. It feels there's a kind of, it even feels somewhat pathetic. It just doesn't know, we're lost in those moments. So be watchful. The warrior in you is the one who scoops that wounded one, that lost one, up and holds it close and says, it's all right. We can now see with wisdom what is best. Even when we've all done it, we've all lived long enough to be able to go into the failure catalog and pick out any number of bloopers, some small, some large, and we have to be able to do so that we can glean the wisdom and the benefit. Hang on a second.
Just a comment on that. So, yeah, I got in touch with it, and interestingly, aware of the anger, and then, reflecting on how the ego was really rebelling against. No, I'm not that. I'm not this. And
I do know.
That's not me.
Yeah, not me.
That's not.
And
me.
I'm entitled or right or justified or
Correct.
whatever storyline we bring along, right? That somehow that makes sense. You'd
Yeah.
have to come up with that first, wouldn't you, to even be able to live it out.
Yeah. And then getting in touch with the anger in a way that because there's nothing wrong with anger. It's just how we act on it. I mean, anger is just another natural emotion, and it can be very useful, and it can be our friend or our enemy. And noticing that, how can I be open-hearted with the anger and allowing that to sort of be there, but not acting on it in an unskillful way.
That's right. That's right. You remember, Greg, we've talked about this many times, but how so beautifully Thich Nhat Hanh would say, we gather the anger up like a lonely lost child and take care of it.
Yeah, I like
Right?
that.
Isn't that
Mhm.
beautiful? And take
That's
care of it.
beautiful. Yeah.
Not reject, not blame, and not justify,
No.
because none of it works. None of it works for assuaging the root cause of the aggression, which is, in fact, a deluded mind, a mind that can make sense out of harm.
And noticing the need for compassion, you know, once you start to see where you've ended up, and
Without it, remember what we say, don't look.
yeah,
Without that heart, without those glasses, the glasses of wisdom and compassion, Hiri is stuck
yeah,
as shame. It gets trapped in the heart mind as shame, as guilt, as uh, horrible me,
right,
doesn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
isn't it true?
yeah, and how taking a few breaths, it kind of, for me, kind of, I can see this little crack opening in the heart, you know, just a little bit, and then I can kind of let that open up and find that compassion for myself first, and then for the other person. It's kind of, it seems amazing to me that after all the practice, that's still this lead sled that I've, you know, for me kind of works, you know, this conditioning of the ego, that I'm so reactive sometimes, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it has such potency. We have to be respectful of those habits as much as we would have to be respectful, let's say, of a raging ocean, right? You don't just
Right.
fling yourself in. You don't go in unattended, do you? Because its power and potency is lifetimes strengthened.
Yeah.
It isn't even just yours, says this whole chapter. It is yours, it is your family's, it is your lineage, it is beyond your lineage, it's your tribe, it's your peoples, it's the countries, the societies, the worlds,
Yeah.
and vice
Everyone.
versa.
Yeah.
And so we can feel for ourselves because we are not the only factor. That too is ego
Yeah.
that makes the you too big or too small.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Both makes the mistake, doesn't it, on both sides? Uh, so thank you.
Mm.
We're all doing this work. And if you don't think you're doing that work, I want to know how you've worked it out.
Yeah, let me know too.
Because we're going to put that in a pill and sell it for a
Really.
whole bunch of money,
Uh,
right? If
uh,
you and aren't we all also working it out every present moment? Yes, we are. We all know, right? It's, can we see? Can we be open and compassionate? Can we hold in some kind of sustainable attention for a few moments to see the factors, to see the flow, to see the cause and effect, as we were looking at right thought,
right.
right? Seeing the cause and effect. Oh, when that happened, I got really scared. I felt like I was going to be left or not loved. I felt like I couldn't be okay on my own. And out of that came the tiger.
Yeah.
Who would have, right?
Seeing the trigger points really, for me is kind of, okay, can I see it? So when I can't see it, when I get lost and I get sort of sucked in, I'm going to write something about this for your newsletter, because I
Wonderful.
yeah,
It's
it was a
something
good
we're
one.
all working on, and that we all know we're working on it is the essential friendship we all need, don't we?
Right.
We all need to know we're all working on it. We all need to know that Hiri is a reality, that unskillful action is a reality for us all, not only in the past, but in this moment. And do we have the courage, the patience, the love, the kindness, the wisdom to look? And the answer is we do. And then really transforming it, just but like to go, I don't want to do it that way anymore. I don't even know what to do, is often what I say. But I know that that wasn't helpful or skillful or kind or loving or the best of me, the best of my capabilities and possibilities for an open heart. And then you commit yourself, right? So let me look, let me stop, let me pause, let me breathe, Greg said, right? Until I can see clearly enough to act more skillfully, more lovingly. And isn't that spectacular? Yes, it is. Right, isn't it? Let's go look at the chapter, if you don't mind, for a moment, because I want to finish this chapter. Thank you so much, Greg. I want to finish the chapter so that we can go on to chapter 8. I'm going to see if I can't get it right here. I believe Jan said we were on page 147, I believe. And just based on Greg and my short talk, look at where we begin here. We're starting here at the top. Thoughts also emerge in response to specific circumstances. I am more likely to act violently, aggressively, unskillfully when I perceive a threat. And we often don't recognize that's always happening when we are in reaction, because we don't even stop long enough to name the trigger or to name the event. We just blah. And that pausing, that stopping, that getting back into the body, getting the hands on the chest and belly, just breathing a few breaths, seeing how we are can help us begin to make contact with that perceived threat, the contractedness, the tightness, the shutdown, the impulsivity might be there. I put in the newsletter this particular quote and story by Ananda, who was the cousin and attendant of the Buddha, who was saying that the Sangha, the spiritual family or community, was half of the holy life, and Ananda saying, no, not right, Ananda, it is the whole. Because if we cannot move beyond our limited, small, contracted self to begin to act lovingly, act from kindness, think with goodwill, we do not have the path. We do not have that life alive in us. When you can be impressive when you're sitting on a cushion and kick the cat when you get up, that is not the noble path we are looking for ourselves. It just then also says that we are culturally bound, we are socially bound, we are familial bound, we are human bound, and that we are influenced. The karmic resonance and causes and conditions of all of that are also at work all the time, influencing us. And consequently, there is a bias, a preference, a way of seeing that also entitles us often to invite certain harms. And I'll just use an example of my father, who said, I'm too old to recycle. I'm going to leave that mess to you all, half jokingly, and also in the recognition that he did not receive adequate education, training, influence, and skills in that regard in his growing up years, and so had some resistance, even though another level recognized that it would be essential. He was like, I'm not going to get to this. doing this is beyond my capabilities. And to some extent, it was true. He grew up in a place and a time, for example, where they were dumping thousands of barrels of crude oil from Inland Steel, Bethlehem Steel, US Steel, from East Chicago, Indiana, into Lake Michigan every day, every single day. And so for him, that was just now normative, right? It was just, that's just what we do. So you're worried about this little plastic thing and where it goes, and that we've got to have a special container and for it. Well, I grew up with that being normative, right? And that we are influenced by those biases. And if we believe we don't have them, there's the mistake. If you don't believe you're operating from some or many forms of bias, preference, privilege, there is an essential error there. And that you recognize those and ultimately begin with compassion towards oneself for that limited heart mind, begin to attend to them. And that's really what Gregory was speaking about there. From that, it says that from those biases, we come to expect, demand, and prefer certain life conditions and circumstances just from there. And when we don't get them the way we want them, we react with what? Greed, hatred, or ignorance. And that we have to begin to see that accumulation and its consequences in our life. Let's see what else we have here. The Buddha's teaching on dependent origination is what I just said. From this, there is that. From that which comes, things go. From that which is arising, that ends. When this isn't, that isn't. Everything co-arising, co-dependent, and conditioned on the other. And if we don't understand that, we can go very easily, I said earlier, into blame, shame, judgment, criticism, condemnation, and really perpetuate the whole situation, because right seeing, clear seeing cannot occur from a closed heart. Not possible. Can I repeat that? Underline. Clear seeing, wisdom, is dependent on compassion, loving kindness, clear goodwill, cannot be seen and known, and vice versa. That those kindnesses, that care, that compassion relies essentially in an intertwined loop on wisdom and that clear seeing. Because once you see clearly, you see the large and small factors and begin to act skillfully to attend to them. Right? Does everybody get this? It's when we go, no, it's just me. It's the same ego that goes, I'm incredible, I'm amazing, I deserve, I'm the one. It's the is the same ego, and it is dualistic in its way of operating. So just so you know, sankharas are all of that contact, I guess would be the word, all of those factors that influence our conditioning and its objects. And Gregory talks about that here. Consciousness arises dependent on all prior formations. What does that mean? All thoughts, all words, all deeds, throughout all time, coming from all beings. That's big. Consciousness itself, this moment, arises from within that field of all of that. It is dependent, not independent, of all will and conditioning. And we tend to call that me. We tend to define it as me, myself, and I. Actions stem from this self in a body. That self is conditioned, in fact, is not solid, stable, fixed, or permanent. And we mistake it and then hate it. And we have to be careful because you're hating actually an illusion. What you are hating is the consequence, the effect, and the pain that is perpetuated from that whirlpool of arising factors, that aggregation, Gregory says here. Not only do individuals act in that way, but then form families, those families form groups, those groups form societies, those societies form countries, those countries form the world. And then he goes on to talk more about that. When you have thoughts of harm, you're likely to speak harm. When you speak harm, you're likely to cause harm. And that always works in that general flow, as well as when I have kind thoughts, thoughts of goodwill, thoughts of compassion, thoughts of clear seeing. I'm also then likely to speak from that, and I then am as likely to act from that, which takes us back to the Buddha's first instructions: place thoughts of goodwill, thoughts of kindness, thoughts of compassion and wisdom in one's mind. And he uses some examples here. When I am awakened, it is likely that others will awaken with me. Yippee! When you are awakened, you are likely to awaken me as well. So good news, and that is also interdependent and co-arising, as well as multi-directional, he says. Top-down causality: society influences the individual, as an individual influences a society. Multi-directional. And they are functioning whether or not you recognize them or see them. To the extent that you can see them more clearly, you are no longer in selfing or othering. You're able to expand those, oh, I can see the way society is played into racism, sexism, and all those other isms of separation. This is more about that. Ignorance is not knowing the cause and effects, as well as solidifying oneself into a self versus, and then creating an other. And that level of ignorance is always going to generate harm. And boy, don't we know it. Those are things I don't think we need. We steward the mind to begin, and then we steward relationships, and then society, and then the world. And then there is no other ultimately from that. The beacons of all the Dharma is right view, right effort, and right mindfulness. And of course, we also can make contact with that. This is the Buddha's version of codependent arising. I'll let you look at that on your own. He once again talks about the Sangha. That we need to bring compassion and clear seeing to ourselves, just as Greg and I were saying. I think probably this is good enough. We talked about the precepts last week. I asked you to pick one to work with. There is no one precept better than another, of course. And remember, they have a positive and a negative, not this and affirming life, not taking that which is not needed and being a wise consumer in the world. It's not just don't be a thief. That is not nearly large enough and is quite limited. It's how do I propagate sufficiency without becoming an addicted consumer and do damage to others by taking and ultimately to the world. And it's that kind of clear seeing that is being asked of us in this on this path. Oh, he goes on to say, I like this, that right action always involves creativity, novelty, no rule is going to apply, that you yourself, from right view to right intention to right speech, will ultimately act skillfully, and that it is probably beyond all of our imagination what one could do with wisdom and compassion from that place, that it could not be formulaic. It would not be just don't do this or just always do that, that is simplistic, and that we are capable of so much more. And he uses the word innovation here. He does take the time to say anything that contributes to the reduction of suffering is considered good. But that means the causes of suffering, not just comfort. So if you go, well, but I like this cup of coffee, so I should have it, that's not what he means. He means really recognizing the impact of that choice on one's individuality, one's own body, oneself, then what that means for the family, again, that we're looking beyond our most immediate impact just to the self, but in its larger context to assess right action. It goes on to say it's not necessarily moralistic. It is to cause least harm for the greatest good, and that doesn't have any straight lines and cannot be easily without clear seeing mindfulness and understanding the factors along with compassion cannot be established. This is about right effort. We're going to be cultivating the wholesome and reducing the unwholesome in a very somewhat direct way, making contact with wholesomeness was arising. Was it there? Was it not there? If it wasn't there, how to get it there? And there's a particular sutta that we'll look at as it relates to those efforts. They're called, I think, the 5 endeavors. And we'll take a look at that. Discernment is required. Abstaining from harm is the bottom line. These are some of the ways we move from right action into right effort, that we reduce harm to self and others and abandon existing harmful patterns. Okay, that's what we were talking about, that it's not only stop doing that, but we also have to recognize what were the belief thoughts, the biases that were contributing, and that we also need to attend to those as well. This is individual versus collective. These are some of the considerations in right effort. Non-action where action is called, non-action for non-harm. When you stop doing something because you believe it will be harmful, good for you. And non-action as resistance, meaning I am not going to buy Starbucks coffee anymore because I do not support the way that Starbucks is treating its employees, as an example. Conscientious objectors were identified there. Okay, I think we're probably pretty good. I'm not seeing anything here that I think we haven't really checked in on. I did like this statement. Nirvana is not a void to be experienced. It is a part of the possibility of this real world. This moment with your presence, your wholeheartedness, that is, and release from greed, hatred, and delusion, that is nirvana. And that it is doable, achievable, and realized here and now, not some other moment, not when we die, that this is the one. and to pay attention and wake up to the path. We are going to be working, starting here on chapter 8, right livelihood. That does not only mean career, can be mistaken. You might call this right living, right life, rather than livelihood, so we don't mistake it for some narrow idea of the jobs we had. Okay, it's almost time. I want to stop and just see if we have any questions. I know I went through that quickly. I think we've got the base idea about this, so I'm not feeling too worried about right action. I think we've gotten an understanding, and I hope that you can use the ideas of Hiri and Ottawa as recognizing unskillful, harmful, deluded actions, thoughts, words in the past, use them with being transmuted by compassion to see more clearly what was really happening and not mistaking that for some solid sense of you, and then making commitment to act from that more skillfully, more lovingly, more kindly in every moment from that one forward. Okay, group, I think that should do it for us for now. I will be here next Tuesday. We will be starting chapter 8. This week, what I'd like you to do is really be watching for actions that you perceive as wholesome or skillful, watching for them, making note of them, actions that you see as wholesome or skillful, and how to support yourself in them, how to cultivate, continue them. And I'd also like you to look at actions that are unskillful, that are harming to you or another. And I'd like you to look at what would it take to stop? What would it take? What would be needed? How might you attend? Get the idea? Wholesome actions. How can we cultivate and grow them? What is needed? Unskillful action. What needs to be refrained, restrained, renounced, and released in order so that it might not continue to cause harm both to you and then to others. Okay, we're going to be looking at that as we begin practice next week on right livelihood. All right, everyone, I see Cindy there. Good to see you, Cindy. Dennis and Denise. I think Seth is still on. Adrian, you made it on all the way from Salt Lake. That's amazing. Adrian is visiting new grandnephew. Jack, how wonderful, wonderful, wonderful is that? There, hi there, good to see you. I hope you've gotten some of that baby time, if not, hopefully soon.
Oh, I don't leave. I'm at work, honey. And
oh, that's tonight. Right, not till tonight.
Yeah,
tomorrow
so
morning.
On hold. Yeah.
Yep, tomorrow morning will be it. I can't tell who that is, but I'm gonna wave. Gotcha. Good to see you all. Be well, everyone. I look forward to time together on Saturday, Thursday morning with Greg. I will not be able to be there Thursday, Greg. I'm so sorry. But blessings and peace to all, particularly those in the Ukraine and all those of us who are working hard to stop that which is harming and unskillful and to contribute to the good. May we all be well, and may we all have peace. Thank you all so much. See you on Saturday at 7:30 in the garden, I hope. I'll look forward to that. All right, everyone, be well.